Cache Creek Committee of the Whole of June 7th, 2021 to order. Economic Development, Councillor Peters and Councillor Cover.
I have nothing.
And Budget Administrative Services, Councillor Peters and Councillor Cover.
Nothing from me.
I have nothing at this point.
Policy and Bylaw Review, myself and Councillor Peters.
I just have a brief update on the bylaw enforcement officer. I can either do it in this one or in our regular meeting. Maybe I'll save it for the regular meeting.
Remedial action requirements.
As we were looking for items to put on the agenda for this meeting, I thought I would bring this one back, if for nothing else, that we could have a look at the bylaws and the policies that may come into play. And as the mayor pointed out the last time we talked about this, they should be sent to our lawyers just to have a read over and to make sure that they are adequate for carrying out a remedial action requirement.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping that at the forefront. I'm sure that our CFO has her hands full as the acting CAO at this present time, and perhaps that can be something we can deal with as soon as we have our new CAO hired, and we can start piling on the work.
I don't believe this will create too much extra work for her if we just make a motion to forward these to our lawyers for review with an eye to the being appropriate for the remedial action requirements. So
Make sure we're covering the steps.
yes, so I would make that motion that we send these to the lawyer.
I'll second.
What are we sending to the lawyers?
The policy F2, commercial fire inspections, and bylaw 756, the bylaw to regulate property maintenance and unsightly premises within limits of the village of Cache Creek.
Thank you. Further discussion, is there a seconder? Councillor
second it, yeah.
Defoe. Acting CAO Martini, do you have any qualms about putting that onto your workload?
Well, if I just have to file them to the lawyer, then that's probably just an easy step. But if I have to do anything right now, I'm pretty swamped. So I can send an email, but I don't think I have the time to work on policies.
No, that's not.
Just
that's
to
not the
send
point.
it to the lawyer?
Mhm.
I can do that.
Yeah, it'll probably take them a couple of weeks at the minimum, I suspect, just to get back to us. And probably
So
more.
what am I directed? Should I send them to her
We're
tomorrow?
discussing that.
Yeah, the
now.
motion was to forward policy number F2 and bylaw 756 to the lawyers to make sure that all steps are in place to proceed with remediation.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried.
Councillor Pittman's on her way. She thought it started at 5.
Public Works and Community Facilities, myself and Councillor Defoe. Handle that one. Councillor Defoe.
Just the only thing here is the restart plan. Have we had any inquiries towards the opening of our facilities at this point?
Only the gym. So people are inquiring about the opening of the gym. That's pretty much all the inquiry that I'm aware of.
I
And
think, oh, go ahead.
When I looked at this, I was thinking more along the lines of actually having our public gallery back with us. Probably no sooner than September 7th, which is step 4.
And I know as a community group user of the hall, we are kind of tentatively planning for September as well to resume our bingo.
Okay.
So, but it'll depend on what happens in the next month. So
Mhm.
we're not really applying for any licenses till the end of July, because then we'd have them in place for, so I think everybody's kind of in wait and see mode.
Mhm.
So then the question is, if we are going to open these council meetings to the public, are we going to require the vaccination passport to ensure that people are up to date with the vaccines and not harm us at risk, or how are we going to proceed with that?
Step 4 says under organized gatherings, increase capacity at large organized gatherings such as a concert. Personal gatherings return to normal. Offices and workplaces fully reopened. And face masks are optional.
But it does
And-
say 1 dose.
Mhm. Yes, it's contingent upon, 70% of the adult population
How about 1 dose?
being vaccinated.
And they're shooting for September 7th.
Mhm.
Right. And a lot can happen between now and September 7th.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the earliest date
Yeah.
to move to step 4, so.
That's something to be cognizant of,
Yes.
for sure. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Defoe. Item number 2, public meeting regarding the pool.
After September 7th, if we're allowed to meet, I would like to see us finally fulfill our promise to the public to have that meeting regarding the pool. It won't be not necessarily a consultation, but at least a public meeting regarding the pool. And perhaps we'd like to go further than that and have some.
Alright, I just started fine. Yeah, we're gonna sit here. I had all my shots, yeah?
Anyway, a public meeting rather than a public consultation, but, members of the public might come up with some really good ideas for us that we hadn't considered. It's definitely not going to be just us talking to them. It'd be
You have like a
two-way.
Q&A session kind of a thing?
Yeah, I would like to see it opened up to more than just the pool, because we
Yeah.
had made a commitment to have town halls per se, and of course COVID has changed that. So yes, the pool discussion should definitely be part of it, but hopefully by then our new CAO will be in place and we can introduce them and talk about the things that have been done over the last year and a half, so that there's a big communication rather than just a isolated item.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it would be a nice sort of reopening for the community and council as well in the future.
But again, that's all contingent on when we open.
After September 17th. Well, at the market on Saturday here in Cache Creek, I was watching all the traffic on the highway thinking, yeah, it's not over yet. but everybody seems to have seen that restart plan and go, yes! We're going for it. So, but yes, as everyone has pointed out, it is contingent upon having the vaccinations and the sickness rate declining. So mid-September would be the soonest.
Any further? Village Services Liaison, Councillor Defoe and Councillor Cooper.
Job descriptions. We've talked about this in the past. I was thinking if we want to be ready by the time the next contract negotiations come up, or negotiations, it would be a good idea to start on it now. So we're not rushed and we're not, we don't just say, never mind, it's too late. So it would be, what I'm thinking of, it would be like a sit down with council and union rep and,
But isn't that an administrative task?
sorry?
Isn't that an administrative task to create the job descriptions rather?
Some
I'm thinking.
input from council.
Yeah,
But it'd be nice to have something to go from, like, to have a conversation about if that was the case. So
Yeah.
I would agree that yes, it is an administrative thing. And if you're busy, too busy now, I think it's time that it's important, but maybe it's not today's task to do.
Well, my thinking is that once we have the CAO and the CAO kind of catches up and gets familiar with the community, then we will probably create a strategy between that person and myself, and we start talking to the public works, and we get those job descriptions updated. Yeah, and then we can present them to the council, but I think that's not the council job.
Yeah, I would like to see like a draft,
Yeah.
and then we could have input into it. I know there's been discussion on pros and cons of job descriptions, but as an employer, I know that they're important because then when you're having good and bad things happening with your staff, you have a point of reference that you can say, you know, when you apply for this job, these were the requirements, you know, you do this really well, we're having some issues here, how can we work towards resolving those issues? Like, it's a really good tool, a training tool and a disciplinary tool, so.
and we've talked in the past that, about what we'd like to see for the village, and our staff have our unionized staff have a large role to play in that, and you know, taking a closer look at what exactly we're doing with our person power, and how we could maybe align that a little better to carry out what our vision is for the village.
Yeah.
Well, we were at one time had job descriptions, then it reverted to no job descriptions, now we're going back to job descriptions, just for council's information.
Those would be still on file, I would assume, somewhere.
Yeah, they may be.
My starting point, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything further? No? Protective Service, myself and Councillor Coomber? Nothing?
No, I don't have anything.
Intergovernmental Relations, myself and Councillor Coomber?
No.
I've reached out to Chief Antoine to possibly set a date when it's permissible to have our council and their council sit down and work on an agreement that we, I believe we started but didn't get anywhere due to COVID between us. As well as reaching out on a few other matters that are in the news these days, and we've had some long discussions about those as well. And I happen to be lucky enough to support them on their journey down to the terminal on Friday morning. Okay. Emergency Management Committee. Councillor Defoe and Councillor
Nothing
Peters.
from me.
Nothing, just that Dodge Fort this year, fully flooding, and we are working towards having, it's a work in progress that I was kind of spearheading during the little bit of flooding time that we had. I reached out to the suppliers that had registered with the village to get proper lists of their equipment because we didn't have very good lists, but and working on getting people pricing on it, which I didn't get finished, but I will pass it back to staff once things settle down a little bit to get that on file. And then once it's set up, I set it up as a spreadsheet with page numbers for the blue books, which very graciously but she did that.
updating it every year pricing. It's simply a matter of finding that reference page, or they've changed slightly, but it gives you a guideline to know what equipment what prices we are allowed to charge for what equipment. So it'll be used in emergency management, but it'll also be used for the village as well.
Thank you. Anything further for the committee of the whole for this date of June 7th?
Just that on the bylaw, one thing I forgot, I made the note and I forgot to say, just on bylaws, that if everybody could take a little bit of time to go through bylaws and look at what we think needs to be updated. We're getting closer and closer to having a bylaw enforcement officer, and I think it's important that we, number one, decide on the bylaws that we as Cache Creek want them to enforce on a regular basis, or work on a regular basis, and also a lot of them are very updated, so ones kind of pick out the ones that you think would be most important to help staff with that, and then which ones need to be updated, which is the majority of them. I went on to some other villages, similar sized villages websites, and they're all, a lot of them are in the 90s and 2000s, but not very many of them have stuff in the 80s still. So.
Okay, thank you. Any further? Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Carried.